Awesome. Guys, welcome to the Rex of the Story. It's a podcast from the Indiana Dinosaur Museum. I'm James Cressy. I'm an undergraduate student at University of Notre Dame, studying environmental science and minor in earth science, but blah, blah. Studying to become a paleontologist. That's the cool thing. So that's who I am.
I'm Mark Tarner, founder of the Indiana Dinosaur Museum, and I'm James's mentor. Since the first grade, he's been correcting my pronunciations and everything else about paleontology. Isn't that right, James?
Yep.
Kendra,
Ah.
it's your turn.
My name is Kendra Bolen. I'm the in-house paleontologist for the Indiana Dinosaur Museum, and I'm Mr. Turner's right-hand man.
Right.
Hey, what we want to tell you, we want to give you a different look at science and paleontology. And the Rex of the Story has an origin with Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey was a famous American broadcaster, and he had an evening show. He did many things. I think he was from Oklahoma, but he had a story where he would reveal intimate details and really the essence of the story at the very end. And then he would say, well, that was the rest of the story. And it was in American broadcasting. And podcasts, I think, have kind of taken that over. When American broadcasting was sort of straightforward and honest in a dialogue with the American people, and media's changed. So we want to give you the backstory and the human story, and you're going to hear that today. And our subject is Sir Richard Owen.
Loosely. All around.
So, James, tell us about Sir Richard Owen. I know you know more than God himself.
Definitely not true. I don't know a ton about Sir Richard Owen, but that's what we're here to learn about, right? Sir Richard Owen. So he was the guy who coined the term. There we go. That's the man.
This is Sir Richard Owen.
That's a great comparison to each other, actually. That's a great comparison. Oh, man.
Looks great. Looks just
No,
like you.
Sir Richard Owen. Now, what's he famous for besides
Sir Richard
looking
Cressy.
like an undertaker?
He coined the term dinosaur, right? So, Sir Richard Owen is the guy that named Dinosauria as a clade. So that's pretty big. Yeah. What do you know about Sir Richard Owen, Mr. Turner?
Well, he was a great scientist, but kind of a cantankerous psychopath, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. He was thought of in all kinds of different ways. Darwin, notoriously they had a bit of a beef, right? So he didn't know about whether or not he subscribed to this idea of natural selection. So Sir Richard Owen was often coming at Darwin for that. And Sir Richard Owen was often criticized as being very selfish, very, very prideful and egotistical in how he went about research. There was a lot of pride early on, and there still is.
Yeah, and part of the story is, and can I put the photo down because my arm's losing?
Yeah, your choice.
I'm gonna put that down.
We have it playing on the TV.
Well, that's good. But it seemed like Sir Richard Owen, he was one who was born like 1804, 1803.
Right.
You probably don't know the date, do you?
I do not.
July 20th, 1804.
And what I know is he shares the same birth date with Giselle Bundchen, who's now pregnant again. You know who Giselle Bundchen is, James?
No, I have no clue.
Is this the supermodel? Tom Brady?
You have spent
Yes.
You have spent too much time
This is Tom Brady.
in some library at Notre Dame, son. All right,
That's my niche.
that's his niche. Okay. Anyway, so he was born in 1804, and he was born in is that the Victorian era? Queen Victoria was still alive.
Sounds right.
He studied at the University of Edinburgh, and a lot of the, Darwin studied there. I don't know if Charles Darwin did. I don't know if he even studied, but they were all sort of contemporaries of each other. And there was the Enlightenment was based. In fact, it's called the Scottish Enlightenment.
Right.
Things were done scientifically, and that's where really modern science was born in England, in the U.S., and the Western world. Now, don't tell the Chinese and the Arabs that.
So Sir Richard.
So I think they were doing something too, weren't they?
So
Okay,
Sir Richard
good.
Owen was he was famous for he did studies of anatomy, right? So he looked at human cadavers, but also he had all these specimens. This is at the British Museum, and these skeletons. So you kind of picture like the work of a paleontologist nowadays, right? They're looking at these skeletons and assembling them to figure out what something looked like, right? So that's kind of, he's starting to get into that early on.
He was an anatomist, wasn't
Exactly. So he
You
was
know-
an anatomist, but also he wasn't just an anatomist. So nowadays we're very, you're an anatomist, you're this. He was very, jack of all trades, as were most scientists. Darwin was too. He was just an all-around naturalist.
But he didn't look, honestly, Sir Richard Owen looks like an Undertaker or like a demented Gandalf.
Yeah.
Doesn't he?
And I like to think that that's just a product of the fact that they had to take long exposure photographs. That's the right term. So you have to hold a face. And if you're keeping a smile, it doesn't really work. That's why Darwin doesn't have a smile in any of his pictures, and no one from this time does. But does also have.
Is that why he has bags under his eyes? And he's
old.
Look at his hair. He couldn't afford a haircut.
Yeah.
But he was an anatomist, and I heard that. I read. I didn't hear. I read that he interned for a doctor, and he just loved to take cadavers apart.
Just love to.
Yeah, he loved to, and so it went beyond anatomy.
Yeah.
And I think we have to trace that weird. I don't think he's a totally normal person.
Can you say are you a totally normal person, Mr. Turner?
No, he's a chocolatier, folks,
right?
And a paleontologist.
In my mind, I'm a totally normal person. Right. And I don't dress up in academic robes, and I don't undermine people. I yell at them once in a while, especially at young people. But, he seemed to have, and we need to kind of get back on topic. He seemed to always need an enemy. It was the first one. If you could either of you talk, and I don't know if you talk, Kendra, or not. But if you do, Gideon Mantell, he was kind of an amateur, and he was sort of a doctor too, I think. And I think he was born in Lewes, England, down by Brighton. And he discovered 3 of the 4 first dinosaurs. And I think the first problem, it was that I don't know if Owen was jealous of Mantell. But do you know any of that story at all?
So you're getting into, one of the things is, the first dinosaurs ever found, right? So I think that's an interesting thing to talk about, at least bring up. So one of the things that Owen did that was really cool is kind of this famous dinner scene that's still depicted in like these, I don't think there's any photographs, but he made, there's still statues today, but they did the first kind of reconstructions of a prehistoric animal. And one of them was iguanodon, which was one of the few species of dinosaurs that Owen used to say, like, all right, these are our dinosaurs. So those are kind of the defining members. One of them was this dinosaur called iguanodon. Iguanodon, literally, like the etymology of the word, iguanodon means iguana tooth. So because when they found these fossil teeth, some of the first fossils, which Mantell, I think, was involved in, one of the species is named after Mantell of iguanodon. So yeah, that's iffy reconstruction of it, but that's what iguanodon really looks like. If you look up though, Sir Richard Owen, iguanodon.
I was about to say, how accurate were these things actually?
Right. So all they had was teeth and a few fragments. So let's see, like the picture. That's not. So the one right below it though.
Yeah.
You notice how James needs a computer and help to actually.
I
have something called a photographic memory.
Okay.
But
for our viewers that don't have photographic memory, I find it helpful to have an image.
Good. Anybody under 40, that would mean all of you. Mm-hmm. But anybody over 40 has photographic memory.
So, Mark, does that look like a dinosaur to you?
I feel like that's a trick question there. I feel like it's a trick question.
Absolutely not.
I'd say actually, honestly, like I'm surprised how close he got. Like that. I mean, to be fair.
Well, Mantell and him argued, and isn't this from that Crystal Palace, one of the first?
Crystal Palace, right? So Crystal Palace, they made these models. So this is just a drawing of it, but yes, very clearly based off of that sculpture. So if you scroll over 2 pictures, there's another picture. So that's got 2 iguanodon. You can see it's kind of laying supine with like using its hands eating veggies. So they knew it was a veggie eater, just like a living iguana when they found these teeth. They actually thought it was just they just applied, okay, we found this tooth, and now they have these reference collections, right? So they looked at like what does this tooth resemble? They found an iguana tooth, and they're like, oh, these look really similar. The reason they're similar, we now know, is just they had similar diets, similar shaped tool to do a similar job is breaking up these leaves. So they have these kind of like leaf shaped, jagged edged teeth. It's not because they are iguanas, it's because they eat the same things as iguanas, tough plants, and they need those kind of shaped teeth. But anyway, what they did was just take the iguana body plan and just scale it up. They thought this thing was huge, like 150-foot, long-tailed iguana lizard. And when Owen even named dinosaurs, like dinosaur literally means terrible lizard. It was thought that these were just giant lizards. That would eventually be disproven, but that's, obviously a story for another episode. So those are some of the first, you can see a couple of the things at Crystal Palace, but there's the Iguanodon, middle left.
So the Crystal Palace was a famous building built in the 1800s for like a World's Fair or an exposition
type deal.
And so these were displayed there. But the Rex of the story is this, and I know you're into unimportant facts. But an amazing thing is that I think this is true, Kendra, you may know, because this involves a woman.
Oh, here we go.
So Gideon Mantell was a doctor.
Yes.
And he was on a call at someone's home, and his wife and him, I think her name was Sarah. Don't correct me on that. I'll have to think about it. Was it Sarah?
I think it was.
Mary Ann. It's close to Sarah. She went out and hiked in a quarry. She found the tooth.
Yes.
And what kind of amazes me that in Mary Anning, there's a famous movie about her. She
definitely want to talk about her at some
collected
point.
Sort of fossils along the Jurassic coast.
If you guys have ever heard, she sells seashells by the seashore.
Say that again.
Arguably inspired by. You should say it. Try saying it real fast.
I can't say it more than once.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
I'm country, so I can't even try it.
Why don't you try it?
The shells she sells are surely seashells.
Yep, there's no even chance of.
So that's inspired by Mary Anning, which we'll definitely talk about. Brief little, just to give you guys some context, though. So she found these Jurassic marine reptile fossils along the coast, and is widely credited as one of the greatest paleontologists in history and the most important to the field.
The first one, really.
But obviously a woman, and she wasn't as recognized in academia until after.
The men suppressed any knowledge of her activity and stole her information.
Yeah.
But anyway, the same thing. I think women have always had a great role, and now I think 60 or 70% of paleontologists are women. But that we'll let Kendra tell that story because I'd hate to mansplain it for her, even though I could. Do you want me to, Kendra?
Yeah. Well, there's.
I already do that enough, so.
It's definitely getting back to the. I would go back down to I wanted to show something briefly to talk about that I think is just really cool. Anyone who's into dinosaurs should know about this. Scroll sideways a few photos. Sideways. It wasn't that one that I was looking at. That one that looks like it's got the chandelier in it.
Oh, the Quetzalcoatl. Oh,
nope.
No.
So this is Iguanodon, right? So this is, so you can see some of those big names on the wall. So this was actually orchestrated and set up by Mantell. I don't exactly, I forget the context, but I thought this is crazy. So he, to kind of, promote this whole thing, it was a very expositional affair. That's an Iguanodon sculpture, and he's actually, it's been, it's not completed. So they used the inside of it. He hosted a dinner with all of these, big names in the field of, like Mantell and
well, I think
Owen,
Sir Richard Owen was,
himself.
He certainly had a kind of a twisted personality. But I think he was a great promoter, and as he worked in the British Museum, and the Queen
made it the Natural History Museum.
Yeah, the Queen loved him, and he tutored their children. And I think part of him is that he knew how to get people to invest money. And this is a type of show where he can invite dignitaries in and make them part of that. So one of his great traits was probably his ability to connect royalty with natural history. And then from the British Museum, didn't he develop a new natural history museum in Kensington's Garden?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Very famous museum. So he's very pivotal in founding all of that.
So he named dinosaurs.
Right.
He came up with a name.
Dinosauria.
What else did he do that we should know about, and that before we talk, we trash talk him? Because I'm ready to.
Well, he contributed to a lot of different fields, but anatomy in general. I'm not sure a ton about some of the other things he did, but
he had some major publications, I think, that are notable for sure.
But he plagiarize a lot. And Mantell, he told him, he told him, Gideon, don't don't write on these.
Oh, yeah.
And then didn't he write on or take credit for his
Right.
his finds?
Well, just in general, as a paleontologist, he was big in describing. So he was a very good anatomist. So he was good at, back then it was an art. You had to be able to take this skeleton or this remain and be able to classify it or identify it or describe it. So he did that for a lot of things, and to greater and lesser successes. But the fact that he's able to narrow down even just from a tooth it to a reptile, and that's big at the time. And all things considered, it doesn't look a lot like the real dinosaur, but from just a tooth, it's pretty impressive. He's also done a lot of other work, though, in paleontology. So he described, for instance, some fossil mammals from Australia, which, these crazy things, like one called thylacoleo, which is this, it looks like a tiger, but it's a marsupial.
I can't even pronounce thylacoleo.
Thylacoleo.
Did he do something with the moa, too?
The moa, yeah, that was him standing next to a moa right there.
So that was his gift. But, I want to go back to like with Gideon Mantell. He needed an arch enemy, right? And we'll probably finish with Darwin. But it seemed to me that Mantell did the original work. And this guy was a spiteful person, and he undermined people, and he suppressed Gideon's work, and then assumed the authorship of the work, which is crazy. And I think, and he's kind of sadistic. Did you know that Gideon kind of lived even though he found the first three or four dinosaurs, he moved to Brighton, which wasn't too far. It's a resort town on the English coast, and he kind of went bankrupt. And because he loved fossils, and the city of Brighton really bought his home, and he had a museum, and he failed miserably at that. And then I'm just, I need some help here. Hopefully anybody knows anything about Gideon Mantell, the first guy that found three dinosaurs, 3 of the 4. But he had a very sad life. But I want to say this: his wife left him, his daughter died. He got in a terrible buggy accident. And he had a deformed spine anyway, but he became a drug addict.
Wow.
Because he got addicted to narcotics. But this is the sick thing.
Right.
And it goes right back to Sir Richard Owen.
Yeah, kind of cutthroat.
So, not cutthroat. I don't know what you
well,
guys...
although it is cutthroat.
I know you guys aren't well read.
It's a cutthroat field early on. So you have these people that, there's so much of it gets personal, right?
Yeah,
so
but
you involve yourself into these things that are supposed to be, this kind of pursuit of truth, but there's so much pride in it, and even all this kind of, especially early on, like who gets the credit for it?
Well, don't you think too, the credit and reputation establishes a person as a professor, and you get money and you get a title. But Gideon Mantell never had that. But that aside, and I want to tell this story. His spine was deformed. And, as part of what Sir Richard Owen did, he had a medical collection of skeletons and things, this royal medical collection that he was responsible for. And when Gideon died, a section of his spine was put in formaldehyde and in a tube, and it's still there. And a lot of their contemporary geologists, and it says a deformed specimen of, he was, even in Gideon's death, he was mocking him. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not normal.
Right.
I can understand professional, wanting to claim credit and plagiarism.
Yeah.
But I can't understand
having the spine of your enemy.
Right.
Yes.
Also back then,
somebody
your
you created
enemy?
as an- that's some sick stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
telling
crazy.
you.
Yeah, it's just one of those where, like you said, paleontologists now these days, they have something out for everyone.
Well, I don't know, Kendra, and it'll be a theme throughout the whole Rex of the
yeah.
story, but I don't understand. And then also Mantell and
who discovered iguanodon.
James, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will. Mantell really, he thought dinosaurs were faster and more like birds.
Yes.
And Owen didn't, and it took 150 years until who from Harvard published Dinosaur Heresies? Was that Bob?
That was Bob Bacher.
Bacher.
He's from Yale.
Is he from Yale? One of those East Coast Ivy League schools that's better than Notre Dame.
Dinosaur Revolution.
Hey now, careful there.
Which would be Brown, Cornell, and all the other schools out there that are better than
Remember,
your...
I'm from the East Coast. Be
You don't
nice
even,
now.
that isn't even your alma mater, is it? You haven't even graduated yet, have you?
I haven't graduated. No.
Okay, good. Hey, Notre Dame's winning this year. It's the first time in a long time.
Mark,
Go Irish.
Mark thought they would.
I have a track record.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Running bet. Yeah.
I digressed.
So yes, Gideon Mantell. He was, kind of took was kind of put in the shadows after.
Well, he was written out of history, and it's
yes,
and his,
right.
I mean,
definitely it was someone like Sir Richard Owen and Jorge. I don't know how you pronounce George Cuvier.
yeah. Jorge.
Jorge.
That's definitely
you
not.
read it.
I think it's.
Jorge. Yeah,
I think it's George.
That was
I'm not French, nor do I ever want to be French. But
they were
Jesus.
the ones. They were the ones I'm pretty sure who claimed credit for discovering iguanodon, and that's largely down to. I had to make you laugh.
Oh, that
Yep.
was perfect.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Had to say
Well,
it.
anyway,
See, it has the S at the end.
the French don't pronounce things that we pronounce like
man.
I'm
R's
taking
and A's.
French too, so that's pretty bad.
That's bad. So, for 150 years then, and it wasn't science, it was personality. And then I think among scientists, especially paleontologists, I think there's maybe a lot of insecurity.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't go so far as to say it's not science. Like it's there's
Just
personality.
a personality trait. Yeah, I think it's a personality trait. But I've noticed, and I've been doing this as an amateur for 23 years and 24, 25 years. And it seems like everybody finds the world's biggest or, it seems like people are so hell-bent.
There's
on
a bias
establish-
towards the big
Well,
things.
Everything too. Everyone wants to be like the first. Like I want to be the first to find another T-Rex, even though Sue and Stan are alive. It's always about the first.
And we'll talk
of
about
doing everything.
we'll talk about things like the Bone Wars, which I think are really interesting. So that's a
And
great
that was
saga.
a great conflict.
And that's something where it's like, you have these two guys, right? So, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope are the names of these two men, these two big academics, and they're both fighting over strictly naming more species of dinosaurs. So they're going out west, frontierland style, and they have all these men, and they're just, digging up fossils as fast as they can. They allegedly even run into each other's camps and chuck the other guy's fossils off cliffs just so he didn't get to name them. But in the process, you lose all these names of all these specimens, and you also are really hasty and haphazard about naming them. So they stick the head on the tail end of something and name 3 species that are just really one different individual.
But that continues. And it's going to be probably announced this spring. But I found a new sauropod because I'm an actual paleontologist. And a new skull. And I was talking to a paleontologist the other day, and he said, "Well, Mark," I said, "when was the last one found?" And this is like the 9th or 10th really skull found. It's an upper, and we'll have a show on that. But he said, there've been a few found, but they're all fakes. And I'm not going to mention his name, but I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "They're just trying to make a name for themselves." That's kind of strange. Yeah. But it seems like in those, the human traits come out in science.
For sure.
And that's, that's the Rex of the story, really.
Yeah.
And that we should keep things in balance and understand that
Absolutely.
science is a very human endeavor.
Yeah. So that's a little bit on the Bone Wars. This is far after we're talking about Sir Richard Owen. So this is, dinosaurs are by their time, well established. This is in the American West. Whereas.
So, do I keep interrupting you?
No. Well, go ahead.
I think that's your role.
Okay.
And Kendra just
I'll do a better
talk,
job.
so we don't have to worry about her. But I think there's that we pretty much covered the Gideon Mantell.
I had something I wanted to bring up. Just go ahead and interrupt you there.
Just go ahead, do. But
yeah,
we need to segue
just
to
doing
Darwin
what you said.
He's
We
here
will talk
waiting
about
to see
Darwin.
us, okay?
Yeah.
We will talk about Darwin.
Charles
for sure.
Darwin,
Charles
reincarnated,
Darwin, and who described evolution. He had some beef for sure with, as we said, with
Sir Richard
Sir
Owen.
Richard Owen. Yeah.
Okay, so finish your thought. I just can't wait to hear it.
Well, should we talk about Darwin first? Let's do that.
No.
No.
Let's vote.
I was about to say,
James
Hear
to
it?
finish his thought.
There we
All
go.
right.
Here we go.
Okay, and also we have an anonymous
This is incredibly relevant.
producer here.
Oh gosh.
No, you don't want to know.
Okay.
All right.
Cook.
We want to know.
Mr. Tarner,
Yes.
Kendra,
Yes.
have you ever tasted a dinosaur before?
I really hope it tastes like alligator or raccoon, because I know what that tastes
You,
like.
Mr.
She's
Tarner?
from Virginia. Her favorite food is raccoon.
Roadkill.
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 Answer the question, Mr. Tarner. Have you ever tasted a dinosaur before?
I have not.
You have not? That's a lie.
Actually, I have a dinosaur that I dug up had skin on it, Juliet, and she's at the Indiana Dinosaur Museum
Very
that
much
you
so.
should all visit. The best
Yeah.
small
Let's come
dinosaur
see it.
museum
That's
in
much story.
America. Oh, I'm
Mummified
sorry.
specimen.
Go ahead.
You actually have. Did you know that? Unless you haven't eaten chicken before. Or turkey. You know, we're going towards Thanksgiving here. You
Oh
guys
my
ever
gosh.
tasted turkey? Yeah? You guys have? Yeah,
No.
turkey's good, right?
So
Turkeys are
James,
dinosaurs.
just get to the point.
Okay. Well, we're coming into Thanksgiving, right, Mr. Turner? I love Thanksgiving. I love eating turkey. What's your favorite? One of your favorite Thanksgiving traditions? Breaking the wishbone,
Fudge
maybe?
ball.
Pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie. I love pumpkin pie is good. I think that's the best pie. But breaking the wishbone, right? I want to get into something pretty interesting here.
Oh, gee, just a second. Let me fall asleep.
Okay. Well, Mr. Turner, you didn't know that you'd eaten dinosaurs before. Did you know that birds are dinosaurs?
So they say.
So they say, right?
So they say.
Yeah. I don't see the resemblance. Yeah.
I do. The feet.
Yeah.
A
feet for
turkey.
sure.
You know, out in the museum, we have a turkey's
Absolutely.
skeleton next
right
to
underneath a
T-Rex.
T-Rex. Yeah.
Right.
And
So-
we have a T-Rex footprint from Texas, I think Los Alamos, right? Allegedly a T-Rex footprint. It's a Tyrannosaur footprint, this huge size. It's got these big 3 toes, right? Now, if you were to go into a farm and have a turkey there, you'll see it looks exactly like it. Now, if you were to see the footprint of like a Triceratops, which I think we can all agree is a dinosaur, it actually looks nothing like that. That's because T-Rex is more closely related to a chicken or a turkey than it even is to Triceratops. So you can't have a bird not be a dinosaur.
I think this is the first time I've ever learned anything from James Cressy.
Okay, here's a follow-up
That's-
question.
Kendra, have you ever
here.
Yeah,
learned
fire
anything?
the question. Kendra's got a question.
I really have a question here. So, did Sir Richard, like, I know Darwin with evolution and somewhat of, Sir Richard Owen did some evolutionary work too. What are the odds that they made this connection?
Well, Mantell was kind of getting onto it when he saw these big footprints, right? I think that was Mantell. But
I think it was too.
yeah, so he saw these footprints and he started to say, wait, I think these were more bird-like. And he was dead on. Now, did you guys know that birds are reptiles?
Remember, I'm from down south.
Right?
We're,
Did you know that, Mr. Turner? Do you know birds are
I
reptiles?
would say birds are not reptiles, but that's
Why so?
I don't know. I read a book on Archaeopteryx.
Yep.
And they have some reptilian. It's kind of it's not the missing link, but I think they're different lineages.
We have an Archaeopteryx, right? So that was found in Solnhofen limestone in
We
Germany.
have a reproduction.
We have a reproduction.
If we had an Archaeopteryx,
We have an Archaeopteryx
I would
adjective
be in Tahiti
and
right
replication.
now.
I was about to
Yes.
say, Mr. Tarr would be
Field
retired.
Sold it.
Field Museum just got a
Sold it.
specimen. I think there's like 13 or 14 specimens of it, but they're all really well preserved because you can see the feathers on it. So when that was first found, that was kind of a jaw-dropping moment. So back then they didn't, they didn't know for sure that dinosaurs evolved into birds. 1 minute, all right, awesome. But so when you find something like that, which has teeth, a long tail. It has claws on its feet. It even has a little bit of a sickle claw, just like Velociraptor. It's because it's really closely related to Velociraptor. And it has claws on its wings, right? So it looks, you can see the feathers in the wings. It's a bird. You can actually see those preserved, this carbonaceous film of feathers preserved in this limestone like a pancake. But it also has all these things that look just like the dinosaur skeleton. But you can't see feathers on a skeleton. But that kind of led people to be like, okay, wait. This thing looks just like a dinosaur, but it also has feathers that really make it look like a bird. So, allegedly, first bird, Archaeopteryx lithographica. But that thing kind of goes to show this point that dinosaurs, a certain lineage of dinosaurs, continue and are alive today. They are birds.
With that, we have to take an intermission. I call it Jamesopedia. So, James, we're going to close the chapter on Jamesopedia.
All right.
Thank you, James.
Catch you guys back in a
Thank
sec. Gotta have the hat. Right off George Washington.
So you're hatless, and can I tell you something? I cannot stand the length of your hair.
That is
Since
his
you
hat,
were a
Tarner.
child, I've been trying to have you get a haircut.
That is his hat.
How often do you cut your hair?
I think you're jealous.
You know why? I'm jealous because
That's the joke.
Don't worry, I have more hair than both of you. God.
No, you kind of resemble
Oh yeah.
this guy.
we have.
Sir
Well,
Charles Darwin.
why don't you put him on the table? We can have a discussion.
Gotta get room.
Let me have it.
So, does anybody know anything about Sir Charles? He was not Sir Charles, was he? I don't think he was
believe
ever
he was.
knighted.
Maybe
I
he
don't
wasn't.
think-
Maybe I'm just mixing that up.
He is buried in Westminster. Is it cathedral or
Okay.
chapel? Or I'm not an Anglican or Catholic or whatever they are over there, so I wouldn't know. But he's what's he famous for, James? And didn't you
Evolution.
just go to the Galapagos when the rest of us
I
were
did.
here in
I did.
45 degrees?
Currently working on a paper for that.
Gosh.
Really?
Yeah. That's,
What kind of paper?
do you really want to know? It's a pretty boring topic.
Absolutely not.
That's what I thought.
Does anybody else want to know? Tell us, because there are beaches there. So Kendra and I probably would have been.
I'm doing a
out
paper on
the-
dinosaurs of the Galapagos. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it is a boring topic. On another note, on here.
No, I want to hear about it, Kendra.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, it's on. There's 2 birds on this one island, right? And it's completely isolated, but they have these nesting colonies there. There's a tourist trail that goes through it. So they nest everywhere, but the question is, do the tourist trails affect the birds nesting? Does that
What does
cause a
this have to
problem?
do with dinosaurs?
Birds are dinosaurs, Mr. Tarner.
Okay.
We're back to that.
Can't forget that.
Can we talk about Darwin? Oh,
Yes,
we
let's
got
bring
to
up
the
Darwin.
Galapagos.
We were at the Galapagos,
we
right? So
digressed.
Darwin was big in the Galapagos. It was crazy how much they have them at like bars, like these tiki bars. They have them as like kind of a figure like Darwin's
Darwin's dewdrop
yeah,
in.
Yeah, no, he's totally like he's a celebrity there, and he kind of to promote it. But I thought that was really funny. But yeah, so Sir Charles Darwin, he goes over to the Galapagos. He's sailing on the HMS Beagle, so he's actually going all the way around the world. These are Darwin's finches. Pretty interesting thing there. So there's these small ground finches and large ground finches in the Galapagos. There's these or medium ground finches. I'm not entirely sure all the different species, but I know there's these finches that Darwin, famously sketched.
So
and-
for those who don't know, before we digress
Yes,
into
right.
finches or
Charles
some more
Darwin.
stories, what did Charles? He was also. Didn't he go to Edinburgh too?
I believe
He
so.
did for a while. I think he was a doctor, and he was from a wealthy family. And
Naturalist. Yeah, he was from a wealthy family. Thank goodness for that, because he's able to do whatever he wants. He just pays to go out on this ship, but he doesn't have a job. He literally is just a naturalist.
So he went on the HMS Beagle,
Yep.
and
He hated going on boat, by the way. He got incredibly seasick. So back then, obviously, you have to be on this boat for that whole time. He hated it so much that he found a way when he had to go back down to South America. I forget the context, but he made sure that they rode down, across, through Panama on horse. He was like, I'm not going on ships. So he found a way to avoid that. Landed as I think up the coast, but so he very much hated going.
speaking of hatred, Sir Richard Owen and
Yes.
Charles Darwin kind of hated each other. But when he got back from the Galapagos and he found these finches, he came back and didn't Sir Richard Owen help categorize, and weren't they friends? His Darwin's
They were
species. And
colleagues in describing. I think this. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that kind of dissolved when Darwin started to get later in his life. He made that publication, of course, on the origin of species. So Charles Darwin described evolution. That's kind of a caricature there. A lot of people made fun of him, right? So it's like claiming like, oh, you think humans are chimpanzees.
Wasn't Darwin, clearly, and the debate goes down to today. Someone in the museum, we have, Charles Darwin pictured in the museum, and someone even in the museum today thought it was, a theory.
Yeah.
And, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But, when I come to this as a non-scientist, and it seems to me there's one display in our museum that has femurs.
Yeah.
Everything from a T-Rex to an elephant to a tiny Cretaceous turtle that my son found.
For sure.
And they all look similar. So there's, regardless of how you fall on Darwin's theory, and could you explain to our listening public
Yeah.
Because you are Jamesopedia.
It's a simple thing. Is just, have you ever noticed that some animals look more alike than others, right? Yeah. So that's something you kind of can't deny. Like, oh, we have birds, right? All birds look like birds, right? So they have these feathers, and they can usually fly. There's things you can kind of categorize them by. So that gets into someone else, Linnaeus, who comes up with this classification system where you can make these groupings of animals. He didn't know about evolution yet, but he knew that there was this. You're able to put these into groups. So anyway, what Charles Darwin is saying, and you were mentioning the similarities in the femur, is as the theory of evolution goes, all life comes from a common ancestor. So you're related to anything you eat, goes back to 3+ billion years ago, but all life shares a common ancestor. That's why we all share common traits. And then, over time, some are more close to others than others are.
So what Darwin was clearly ahead of his time, and then Sir Richard Owen had a different theory that more was politically acceptable. And so,
right.
What is the essence of Darwinism?
Darwinism, I don't know if Darwinism is so that can apply to different things, but the theory of natural selection, which is what he coined, because Darwinism, you can get into like social Darwinism and things like that. That's almost you
can't answer the question,
philosophy.
Can you?
I can't fully answer that question.
Isn't Darwin is that things change over time and evolve over time?
Correct. So the theory of evolution is just that in natural selection is that if the survival of the fittest, right? So this idea that, and that doesn't mean like strongest necessarily. It just means the ones that are most likely to survive and pass on their genes to the next generation. So if you have something that, so say if one animal has webbed feet and it's swimming in the water, and another, it has this mutation that caused it to have this skin that's a little longer than its cousin, but that one has, doesn't have as webbed feet. That one can't swim as well. So it's less likely to be able to move through the water and catch prey, and might die sooner. Less likely to find a mate.
Environment changes a little bit.
Environment changes, things like that. So things can change, and this is over a long time. It's very slow, very gradual. So it's hard to wrap your head around because it's like, that sounds crazy, but it's over generations of it occurring.
Well, I think, and Darwin came out of the Scottish Enlightenment, right? And all these ideas, whether they're in science or who was the guy? Sir Isaac Newton. He lived at that time too, didn't he?
Yeah.
I'm sure he did. And they put all these ideas together, and I think it was a perfect kind of symphony of ideas and thoughts, whether it was philosophical or scientific, that created men like Darwin.
Right.
And it was just a magical time in world history.
A good example of what Darwin did in the Galapagos, so going back to Darwin's finches, which I think are a great way to illustrate this principle. So it
always goes back to birds.
Well, yeah, because birds are dinosaurs. Not all dinosaurs are birds. But so if you look there, so you can see how some of them have big beaks and some of them have small pointed beaks, right? So Darwin saw that there's all these finches, and they all look really similar, but some of them have huge beaks, some of them have medium beaks, some of them have small beaks, and he noticed that. Which ones do you think ate big hard nuts and things like that, right? Gosh, Mr. Tarner, this is a family program.
I think finches eat seeds.
They do eat seeds.
Kendra, do finches eat nuts or seeds?
Seeds.
I think so too.
Big hard seeds.
I don't know if I can truly answer this question as a female. I really don't even feel comfortable answering this question as a female.
Some the ones with the small beaks are good, are well suited to eat these, soft, swishy insects and things like that, right? And to eat, maybe these seeds that are during the wet season. It's moist out, and there's these seeds. You got a smirk on your face, Mr. Tarner. Can you take this seriously?
I thought this was about Sir Richard Owen. And
this is about evolution. We're talking about a very
I thought we were talking about Darwin.
What I was trying to say, though, is Sir Richard Owen and Darwin had two kind of competing theories. And what's amazing, and I've never been there, I want to go to the British Museum of Natural History, but Sir Richard Owen's statue was right in the center.
Yes.
And, he disagreed.
Famously.
He disagreed vehemently, and Darwin and him hated each other. And his statue's been relegated to a dark corridor. And Darwin's, buried in Westminster Abbey. And who knows where the hell this Undertaker's buried.
So
I just wanted to remind, we are on the topic of Sir Richard Owen. That's the topic.
That's the man.
Oh yeah.
The myth, the legend.
Producer, are we on that topic? Do you like the way I'm trying to keep us on topic?
God.
Go ahead, Jamesopedia. Whoops, sorry.
Right. So Sir Richard Owen disagreed on the basic idea that Darwin came up with, which was that this process is entirely driven by chance, and or not entirely driven by chance. It's driven by the need to survive.
Didn't he
and
also
reproduce.
write a book, something, James?
Darwin or
No, Sir Richard Owen. He wrote, something on that there were archetypical, body types, and we all evolved from. But it was different, and it seemed like his theories were tainted by political correctness in the day. So he wouldn't upset the Bishop of Canterbury and the Queen or
so
whatever.
there's this tension between this idea of strictly going by a literal interpretation of, say, the Bible, which says that which you can trace the generations, right? And so they're going back and saying, okay, this seems like creation happened 6,000 years ago, say, and it was a miracle. There's no natural explanation for it. God made someone from it, so there's a literal interpretation of the Bible in that way. And so it's like, okay, if you have something that you're saying takes this really, really long time, and that it happened through these natural processes, that's contradicting. So says this narrative. So that's the tension. And so there was a lot of I think Sir Richard Owen was saying that he believed in kind of like a theistic interpretation of it, where it's like, well, God's hand is at work, and there's all these different processes that go into it. And Darwin was saying, Darwin wasn't saying that he wasn't anti-Christian, anti-God, and anything like that. He was just describing what he saw based off the natural processes.
I really want to have a story on evolution. A podcast, and because I think it's an amazing human story.
For sure.
But as Indiana's in the Bible Belt, and we're here at the citadel of the Catholic Church, South Bend, Indiana, Notre
Proud
Dame.
Catholic.
I have never really thought that evolution. It seems like I've never thought that it didn't disprove the existence of God. I think to me it's more like a interpretation of the Bible. But my digging up of dinosaurs and my experience in paleontology has actually made me believe more in divinity.
Yeah,
more
makes your picture of God that much greater.
Yeah, it's I've never understood that, and I don't even know how to argue with people.
Yeah,
because it seems like science has
right,
and and humans are great storytellers. We just aren't great storytellers. Paul Harvey was.
Yeah.
But it seems like we're telling stories, and once again, even evolution is sort of a displaced argument, or a debate that has no resolution. And it seems like humans, whether it's Sir Richard Owen and Darwin and Mantell, we're constantly having conflict, and then we don't really come to a mutual agreed.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah, I agree. Need
Truth.
to be more.
And it seems like that isn't science, the pursuit of truth. I'm not a men's scholar like you, James.
No, just a sophomore.
But it's just a sophomore.
Just a sophomore.
He's just soft, folks.
So I think you bring up a great point, though. So there's this
the
tension.
softness, or
Blue Chew.
So, but you're bringing up the point of that. Yeah. So there's everyone's trying to seek out this common knowledge of the truth, right? And that goes on. That you can trace that back. So I think as soon as ego becomes involved and it becomes kind of a, you have a stake in it on a personal level, then it's no longer, then you get the personal element, right? And there's it's no longer an objective pursuit of truth and better understanding. It becomes I've staked my claim, and I don't want to be wrong about it. So Sir Richard Owen said, I disagree. And they came at each other in press, and that
didn't
kind of
they
dissolved
fight through surrogates, and
right.
it's just I just don't get conflict the way it seems like it should be fun, and we should work together toward a mutual.
Should be
truth.
fun.
It should be.
Yeah.
Okay. So where are we at now? Are we done with Darwin?
I don't know. I've been just sitting over here listening.
Well, do you have anything to say, Kendra?
Oh, I was, that's a really, yeah. I have a whole lot to say around
Any
here.
questions?
Any questions? I feel like I'm the questioner around here. So for you two, like understanding everything that we have been talking about, Sir Richard Owen and, Darwin as a fact, I feel like those controversies still happen today. Like, like he said in the museum, we have it, but it can be skipped over. But I also feel like it goes into paleontology too. As
In what way?
I was about to say in paleontology, we still have those. Sorry, I can't see anybody.
Well, why don't you move Darwin?
Hold on, give me a second. There we go. Hi guys.
Hi.
I've missed you guys in a very hot second. I feel like I got left out.
You're back.
Thanks, Darwin. But no, I feel like this simplicity has gone away in science. Like you said, there should be one truth that comes out at the very end of it. But there's so many paths that we can get lost. Like it's like a dark bunny hole.
It's also a lot of unknowns, and I think
Yeah.
it's important to. I think also sometimes people just all it takes is you gotta get someone on the same page, right? And that can be hard to do. So it's like it's not necessarily if you don't know that. You'll learn about evolution or this. You can't reject something until you give it its fair shot, right? So I'm always open to. You try to be open to whatever fits best. So no one.
And I think I think we've touched on a number of incredible points, but we're almost in a. I'm a big believer in the Enlightenment, and our democracy came from Enlightenment. And our country was founded by some of the foremost thinkers in the Enlightenment. And it seems like we're almost in a post-Enlightenment era, whether it's science, because, I talk to people on the street and, they don't trust the media and they don't trust science.
Yeah.
And, people just make up truths anymore. And it seems like we're I don't want to say devolving, but it seems like science has lost its hold.
No, I don't want to say that.
I don't know. That's how I feel. Kendra, how do you feel?
I think it's true.
We're
I
in
think
the museum every day, and I know you're at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I
cloistered
don't think
away.
science has lost its hold.
Cloistered away
I
in
think
some
so long as
library.
kids love dinosaurs, science has a good hold. I think it's about having a sense of wonder about the world, and as long as everyone's got that, and just it's got to be fun. Learning about these things is cool.
But I
and
know,
talking
but
about
it
'em is
seems
cool.
like science and some major Enlightenment institutions is they're at the breaking point, and whether it's our government or what the truth is. And so part of the rest of the story, I think, is that any dialogue, if it involves humans, involves different stories.
Yeah,
And,
coming together.
And science should at least be more objective. And many times it's not for hundreds of years. It seems to me that science is more of a process, and it's a very human thing.
I think it's important to clear the distinction between there is a truth that's to be pursued, right? So there's kind of this idea that, okay, there's something here that we can all figure out. So it's saying that there's one truth that we can all come to is one thing, but saying that we can all get there at the same pace, or we can all, sometimes it's hard to get there and we don't know. We haven't gotten there yet. So just because there's all these different intertwining ideas, that doesn't negate the fact that there's this one thing that we're all trying to get to. So even though there's, this is getting kind of, big time philosophical, but just, trying to get to that understanding as a whole, I think it's important to meet people where they're at in, any discussion, and try to keep it simple. And, at the root of it is, as long as someone shares, a fascination for things that we do.
At the root of it is people not having long hair
and killing people.
and killing people.
And killing people.
Taking their spines.
The Undertaker for a
let's
reason.
Get back to Sir Richard Owen. So clearly, he started the first kind of serious conflict in your field, in our field, right, in paleontology.
It's debatable whether it's the first serious one, but yeah, it's one of the early
these
on
were
in
the
the field.
founders. These were the founders.
Yeah,
of
big name
science,
founders of paleontology.
Who was the first paleontologist? Do you know?
I think
I
that's
really don't.
I mean, I
Was
know
it,
there's
was it George Cuvier?
I don't know
That's
who
a joke.
when the term was coined, paleontologist.
But that's
Maybe we should, and also, leading into our next talk or podcast, if there is one, I think that we should talk about maybe who the first American paleontologist was and the origins of this.
There's
Because of course,
so much to go into.
of course, as a good American, we don't look to Europe for anything except for wine and perfume. But that was a joke. In case you're from Europe,
You should probably say
Oh
that
my
more
in
often.
case you're
gosh.
from Europe, this is bubble
my
gum.
gosh.
This is gum, and we love to chew gum in America because we have a dry environment. Anyway, but I think there's other stories to tell.
Oh, of course.
Does that make sense?
I think
And
there's
a lot of things that have gotten
an
lost.
endless, yeah. We can never cover anything, right? That's kind of the beauty of this. Is there's so much history here, and the fact that you're able to go into all this depth and we can kind of explore these
Could you say that again? We can never cover anything.
everything. I said, not
Oh,
anything.
Oh, okay. I was.
Gosh,
There's so
guys,
much to cover.
have some faith.
Yeah.
No, there's so much to cover.
Well, can
right?
we agree on this? That Sir Richard Owen was one of the founding paleontologists. He named dinosaurs. He was a plagiarizer, a mean person. He looked like an undertaker. He was actually an undertaker.
Pretty sure his wife
And
left him.
So, and he had a lot of really bad relationships with some major thinkers and people of the time.
Right, but
Okay.
it's about his contribution, right? Got to at least admire and respect him for what he's given to the science. That's kind of the thing you
Is
take
that
away.
okay?
I love how you see.
I'm not
good in
so
him.
sure that
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that we're talking
well,
about.
the founder of modern Christianity is Jesus, and the founder of our country is George Washington, which he's here somewhere. Oh, George.
He took your hat.
He did.
He took my hat. And George is with us. And it seems like those are people that we admire. Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi.
I mean, who found the Americas? It's a big person.
That
but
is
not
loaded
someone
question.
with there. Fair enough. But I'm trying to say
I'm
that
pretty sure as a Catholic you're going to say Columbus.
I'm glad that America was found, but I'm not glad of the things that Columbus did. So there's an importance to separating what someone did to practically from the person that they are.
With
We were
that-
just talking about science and
With that, folks,
all
I
that.
think we've come to an end. So this is Mark Tarner,
this is James Cressy.
This is Kendra Bolen.
and that's the Rex of the story.